My name is Patricia Allingham Carlson, and this is my painting, Ain't She Sweet? Background on this painting was that we took a camping trip to the beautiful Shenandoah Mountains of Virginia. We camped on a farm. Well, rather, right next to it. The cows there were so friendly, and they're very cute animals. They came right up to the fence, and I took a lot of pictures. So here it is, March, back home, and I had this lovely reference picture, so I decided to paint a cow. I hope you'll give it a thumbs up and enjoy it. Now let's paint. I prepared a piece of paper by taping it down. And then I sprayed it with water from my plant mister and sprinkled the paint on it. I was wondering how to approach something colorful and bright and not realistic, but more fun with this beautiful little cow. I was looking through a different catalog and I saw a beautiful painting that somebody had done in abstract, and I said, "Ooh, I love those colors. Maybe I could try some of them for the background of my cow." Inspired by this other artist's colors, I decided to try them. I ended up changing things a good bit, but it gave me a start. And with a blank piece of paper looking at you, sometimes that's what you need. My paper was buckling all over the place. I had to keep wiping it off, and even though it was taped down, I could see it wasn't going to dry very well. All the paint kept running to the sides. So you'll see my solution to that problem pretty soon. I'm adding colors all around just as I feel, using bright yellows and some yellow ochres. I'm using some Quin coral. I'm using some cobalt blue, a little bit of viridian green, and some browns. So here's the objects I put on that buckling paper to weigh it down while I dried. So all the paint didn't just run off the sides. They were just things sitting around the studio. What I'm doing now, before I leave for the day, is to sprinkle on some big pieces of salt. And the next day I take off the objects, and I was not expecting them to leave imprints, but they did. So, rather than despair, I treated this even more as an experimental piece. I said, how can I use these objects, these prints, and if I don't like them, how can I take them out? I got out my reference photo of my cow, and I drew some basic reference lines. I wanted to get the right measurement for the head that would fill most of the space but not all of it, because the cow had such an expressive face. So I got ear-to-ear measurements, top of head to chin measurements, and approximate location of the eyes. You know, this was harder than it looks. So it took me a bit to get the sketch correct. There was a number of revisions as well. I wasn't really sure how I was going to go about this painting, but I knew I had to get down the basic measurement of the cow, the basic contours of it, and then I thought I'd just play it by ear. You could see I took out the first big impression, that oval shape, it wasn't going to be usable, but I left in the two sphere type, or the two circle-y shapes. And now I'm using some Payne's Gray, and in some cases some indigo, to block in the darks of the cow. You can see I'm feeling out the contours of the animal, trying to show the anatomy, first with the dark lines and then softening them. And I'm leaving plenty of colorful space. I find it to be very interesting to build a subject on top of an established colorful background or differently colored background. In this case, after getting myself rather into a tight frame of mind, like maybe I should go with more realism and cover over the colors, I told myself that was not what I wanted to do. This was a cow with two circle shapes, and I should have fun with the colors. So I began to bring in some much more vivid colors. This was an experiment. Where the light is shining on the cow, I'm using lighter colors, like the yellows and the ochres. I'm bringing in some vivid warm colors like vermilion, where I want the cow to look where it's coming out, and where it's going in and recessing, I'm adding more purples and more indigos. I've found that Payne's Gray fades as it dries. It goes down nice and dark, but it really does get lighter and lighter. So I had to put on quite a few layers or glazes of Payne's Gray as I was working. And when I want it to get really good and dark, I'll mix in some purple and some indigo. So I'm working with the fur direction, I'm working with bright colors, and I'm working with some fun. My next challenge will be to give the cow the whimsical and very sweet expression that I saw in my photographic reference. She was a sweet cow. She came right up to the fence to say hello to me. I decided to make her top fur that stuck right up in the air out of vermilion and make it nice and bright. And then with that brightness there, I carried the vermilion elsewhere. I was having fun with these colors at this point. I put down a little color, and if it looked right, then I would glaze a second layer as soon as it dried, because I wanted the brightness and the gaiety of this picture to come across. You can see I've added some turquoise colors as well. And now I'm working on the muzzle, forming out where the nostrils come in, and taking away a bit of paint where there is a highlight around the nostrils and across the top of the muzzle. Having brightened the cow, now I'm doing some brightening of the background. The brilliant colors I put down did fade. I needed some refreshing and some enhancing. I'm coming in with yellow at this point. It's truly lighting up the painting with some sunshine colors. As a complement to the yellow, I'm also adding some Quin magenta. This is a very playful painting, and I can't imagine that it's to everybody's taste. But I was having fun. Now you can see I've totally built up the grays and the blues and the darks a lot more at this point. And now I'm going to work on the eyes and the area around the eyes, the lids. It was important to me to establish a cow who was looking at the viewer and engaging the viewer, but also looking slightly away and not being aggressive at all, but very, very friendly. I'm darkening the nostrils as well and trying to capture the unique shape that they were flared in. At the bottom of each nostril, there was a bit of a shine from the moisture of them, and I'm trying to leave that lighter area so that it shows. I'm also trying to make a happy expression on the cow's mouth without making it look goofy. And I satisfied myself anyway. The bottom of the nose curves downward and inward, so I'm darkening that area, as you could see. Those eyes still need to be done, and the background is not really determined yet at this point. I'm probably putting it off because I'm having so much fun playing with the cow, putting in her fur and putting in her colors. A little blue here. Why not? When I use a color in one spot in a painting, I generally try to repeat it in another. I think it makes for a good carryover. After a night's sleep on the subject, I decided to put a tree in next. I decided the tree had to be dark because it had to balance some of the darkness in the cow. So I'm putting in some branches that I want to paint in, making sure that they look about right. After I draw them, then I'll paint them. Now I got the courage up to start working on the eyes. I begin with the lids and the shading around the lids. I'm glad my paper was forgiving because I had to paint these eyes over several times. Particularly the one I'm working on right now on the left side of the paper. I wanted the eyeball to be turned toward the viewer, and yet I couldn't make a large area of white on the far left because it wouldn't look natural. So I'm making the darkness around the eye and the shadowing and shading around the eye first. And I'm trying to avoid making an eyebrow that lowers down and looks angry with the structure of the cow's upper face. That's what I had to take out several times because I kept making a mad cow. And I didn't want one who was angry. I wanted a happy cow. Building up browns and Payne's gray. Taking some of that dark color over onto the right side and filling in the right eye. And working again with the shading around the eye. And trying to keep it from looking angry. I'm trying to keep that large protuberance above the eye highlighted and light. So you're seeing me take color out of it when I've made it too dark. A feature that really enhanced the animal's eye was the pretty long eyelashes that cows apparently have. I'm cleaning up the structure around the muzzle, making the muzzle itself a little lighter on the far edge and darkening right next to it, so it will stand out. I'm pretty satisfied with the cow. And now I'm moving to that challenging background. I have to figure out what to do exactly with those spheres. There's one on the left and there's the one on the right with the dots. But I know I want the tree. So I'm working first with the tree, adding branches and making sure that they're dark and patterned. So the patterns will pull together with some of the other fun color patterns in the cow. So the patterns I'm making are to simulate bark. I'm using a mixture of sepia, Payne's gray, and sometimes indigo to paint this bark in, and then I will soften and shade these textural lines. Since there's a tree, I'm painting in some leaves. Some are bright colored, some are muted, but it's helping to incorporate the colors into the background. Now, how to proceed with those circles? I decided to first remove the excess paint that blobbed onto the paper to complete that circle feeling on the right. It's removing quite nicely for me. Using a couple brushes to find a logical intersection or center, I decided to paint a flower center. It's sort of a pinwheel. My thought was, if a cow was out in a hot field and there was a tree and there was a pinwheel under the tree going round and round, that would be a good place to stand. The thought being it would keep the flies off the poor cow. So that's one of the reasons that I think she's happy, is because she's under a tree with a pinwheel going around and swishing the flies away. So I'll go with that. Again, I looked through the internet for some pretty pictures of pinwheels, and these were from a festival in the street. I changed around the design and colors to suit my needs. Put in the flower center and brightened the colors as they faded as they dried. It's starting to pull together. Now I'm cleaning up the center around the flower. And as I add the darks around the light center, it makes the center stand out more. My pinwheel is not in perfect symmetry, but I also decide I don't care about that, because the picture is not really a reality picture anyway. It's more of a fantasy fun picture. So that's where I'm sticking. Now there's a less defined sphere over on the left side, and I'm trying to decide how I'm going to use it. I have a stamp. The stamp is of a sunshine with a center. And before I would use anything like that, I experiment first elsewhere on scrap paper, or in this case, on the edges of my tape. Here I'm highlighting and accenting the tree on the bottoms, as well as adding more leaves to the background. How to pull together that left sphere as well. I stamped in the center, realized it was very asymmetrical, and tried to bound it out a little bit. Also to vague it out a little bit, so it was not a prominent feature. It really was not important to the picture anyway. So it's more of a suggested form. Than a spelled out one. I'm at the point now where I'm finishing the painting up and deciding what it needs to have completion. I'm tightening up the flower form. I'm glazing a couple more layers of color around the painting, on the leaves, on the cow's face. What is seen through the pinwheel on the right side as well as the left side. And toward the end I decided to add more yellow to make everything even sunnier. It was fun to bring this painting together toward the ending, to pull the pinwheels and the trees and the cow all together into this little whimsical picture. The pinwheels being totally dictated by chance and not anything I ever would have thought of myself. One of those happy accidents for me. And I enjoyed it. Done and signed. I hope you enjoyed my video of Ain't She Sweet. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up. If you ring the bell and subscribe, then you won't miss any future videos. I'm glad to answer any questions that I see posted, and I enjoy your remarks and your comments. There's some links below that you can check out if you want to see some products that I use, some products that I make, some other areas where I'm at on Facebook and my blog. I also have some online stores where I sell prints and art products of my paintings. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next painting.